Well, hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee and meteorologist Joe Rayo. Uh, that's Joe Rayo. I'm Joe Chaffee, and it's the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Thursday night, the second to last day of the worst month of the year, July. It's not my favorite month, Joe. We do have Isaias as
No, Itzarias.
no, Isaias.
No, that's the way.
How did you say it?
Itzarias.
Itzarias?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to go with the Portuguese name. Listen. I've watched today. I watched today on several different stations, and the butchering that that, that they did with that name is something else. But I haven't heard you do it your way. I'll do it mine. There's a 50-50 chance that
If you
both
do, if
both
you
of us
keep
are
doing it,
wrong.
if you keep doing it your way,
I
we're,
have
we're gonna hear we're gonna hear from Mrs. Rayo, who has been lecturing me all afternoon on the correct pronunciation of this
Isarias.
particular name. Itza, and even she says I'm not saying it correctly. Itzarias.
Itzarias.
Uh,
All right. Well,
why can't they
whatever.
just go
Well,
with
like, look,
Ida or Ivan or
something.
Isaac
Yeah.
or whatever?
All right. No. So here's the thing. I combed through everything today to just try to figure this all out. The conclusion that I've come to is that I think the risks for and I don't know if I'm saying anything groundbreaking here. The risks of the East Coast after today's series of model runs, both last night's and this morning's, and some of the ones that we're getting now, I think it's we can you can say that the risks for the East Coast are growing, and I think that we can also say that the risk for the mid Atlantic states to southern New England is also on the table. What we can't say now, Joe, and I think you would agree with this part too, is what we can't say now is anything definitive. Uh,
No.
no, I mean everybody wants the definitive answer 4 days ahead, 4 to 5 days ahead of time, but you're not going to get it.
It's tough. First of all, I would suppose the best mid and long range models that we have, which are the GFS and also the European models, they're um, they're not exactly in sync with each other. One is in fact almost a full day faster than the other.
Right,
One
the
is about
European being slower.
right, and the 50 to 70 European model and the GFS are about 50 to 75 miles apart when it gets up to our latitudes. The one that is a bit closer to us is the GFS, and the one that's a little bit further out to sea is the European. And but you know what, Joe? And you and I have seen this so many times. Storms that let's say start near Cape Hatteras and then curve north and northeastward out just off to our east. These type of hurricanes, these type of tropical systems only give us a few hours of nasty weather. It would be a lot different if we were talking about a direct hit or even a storm that may go just to our west inland. But it looks like right
I
now,
don't think you can take those possibilities off the table yet because
correct.
I don't think we know. We have a very dynamic looking European in terms of the upper air. Forget what it does at the surface. We know what the possibilities are in terms of the spread. But when you look at the upper air and you look at the dynamic looking trough that the European paints from where you have a full latitude trough from the northern Great Lakes to New Orleans, in early August, I can't remember the last time I saw a trough like that in early August. Maybe in September, yes, but in early August, it's pretty unusual. Uh, all the models seem to have the same concept, uh, but the Europeans got this very deep look, and the GFS and some of the others have a slightly, not a slightly, I guess you could say, less phased or maybe a little bit of a flatter look, where the flow along the East Coast, instead of being like the European is, where it's basically a 190, 180 flow or 190 flow, the GFS has a flow that's more like 220, which would slide it a little bit further to the east. So it really is going to depend on, it's really going to depend on the strength of the ridge offshore and the depth of the trough to the west and that alleyway in between. And let's not forget also, Isaias has to come out north of the Dominican Republic. We don't know what it's going to do once it gets out there, because if it starts to strengthen, that's going to put a different spin. If we get a stronger storm, it might turn more poleward sooner. It's so we have to, we're weighing a lot of different things here. A lot of variables are in play. So I wouldn't discount. I wouldn't discount anything in any direction at this point.
No, 4 or 5 days out, you really, you can't, as I put on my Facebook analysis a few hours ago, I mean, this is not set in granite. This is not the definitive last word. With 4 or 5 days out, there can be a lot of flips and skips or whatever. But what I'm saying is that if it were to take the track that we're looking at right now, if nothing were to change, and this is the track about 150 miles, 200 miles southeast of, let's say, New York City, from my memory, storms that have come along that type of a track or path, a few hours of squally rains,
Right,
maybe some gusty winds, and that's it.
right.
However, a storm that hits us head on, like a Floyd, for example, or an Irene, uh,
No, it's a whole different ball game. Then it's a whole
it
different
is.
ball game.
It is.
And,
And as
and
I mentioned, yesterday, a storm like David from 1979 that passed off to our west, that puts us in a very volatile situation in terms of potential convection, heavy thunderstorms, even possible tornado outbreak, and also even more in terms of strong gusty winds, not just for the coast, but for inland. If this stays offshore to our south and east, yeah, coastal New Jersey, Long Island, you're going to see some strong winds out of this. But from where I am up here in Putnam
all
County,
right, well, you're up inland. You're going to need the
right,
European. You need the Europeans' track to be correct, which is to basically coast hug it all the way up, bring it over New York City and Western Long Island, and take it into West Central Connecticut. That
right,
that that is the worst case scenario for you. I think
right.
the Europeans' track is as far west as you're probably going to want to see as you see the envelope setting up here with this system. So that looks like the westernmost part of this. And then of course you've got the other models that are further east. But again, the spread is when you look at the hurricane tracking models and when you look at the global models, the spread between of them is not very wide.
Right.
So the other thing is I should just also point out this is a small cyclone. This is not a big amorphous cyclone where
Right.
it's actually quite small. It's and
Tight little
that's
storm.
what's that?
A tight little storm.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. It's probably going to be a tight little system that's going to move up. So you're going to have to be fairly close to what's going on. Although I'm kind of curious. One of the other curiosities in this to me is going to be with an upper trough that deep. I wonder whether there might be, as it gains latitude, whether there might be some baroclinic effects that we aren't really taking into account yet. Does it start to really accelerate like a rocket ship at some point? Uh, does that do you get a little bit of baroclinic strengthening as it goes up, and the storm becomes less, it it's no longer purely a tropical system. But these are all very short range type questions that we'll have to address.
Well, I think right now, though, if we go by the projected tracks, the places that may have some real worries on their hands next week would be perhaps Cape Cod and possibly Nova Scotia. But again, at the moment at least, this stays off to our south and east, and we'll see how much closer perhaps it comes if it's more to the west in the upcoming computer runs.
Right. So it is Thursday, so we're talking at the earliest sometime later on Monday. If you go by the Hurricane Center's forecast, the European, as you said, we'll point that out too, is also seems that it's about 18 hours or 24 hours slower. But all of that will get resolved in the I think over the weekend. Let me just say two things really fast before we go to the maps. Welcome to those of you who are watching from the meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app. Welcome aboard and hope you enjoyed the show tonight. And also, Thanks to Robert Russo for an early super chat hit. Joe and I appreciate that greatly. And I just wanted to say a quick hello, if he's watching, to John Trabacchino. John Trabacchino is a regular on the chat board, but he hasn't been around for a while, and just found out that he is not well. But we sent him our best and a speedy recovery. So big hi, John. Get better and get back to the chat board and watching the show. Everybody misses you. So with that in mind, let's roll along and get to the first maps of the night. I guess we'll start with the let's start with the GOES satellite loop of this system. Which, Joe, I'm looking at this and I'm going to bring it up full screen right now. It does look as if the system's really organizing this evening, and I'm wondering. There's a big blowup of convection. Almost all of it is now in the coastal waters north of the Dominican Republic. It's like the southern edge of it is kind of skimming the northeastern part of the island. But I wonder if what we're seeing is something that we were been saying the last couple of days, that the center of this, which was actually south of the island and moved into southeastern the Dominican Republic, may be doing a bit of a center jump or a reforming underneath that big blob of convection that is developing up to the north. It's really impressive looking.
It sure does look that way. It seems like it's, may I use that term again, cartwheeling right along the north coast of Hispaniola. And yeah, if it manages to stay mostly offshore, and if that convection blow up is indeed real, and it certainly looks every bit of that on GOES 16 right now, we may see a rapid intensification right to excuse me, right to hurricane status, and that'll make even more problematic the situation for the folks in Florida, especially those who live right along the East Coast for this upcoming weekend.
I am not seeing, by the way, when I look at this, I'm going to try to lift this up a little bit further to the north so we can see what's going on over Florida. So you'll notice, folks, there's some showers and storms out in the coastal waters off the Carolinas, and they're kind of dropping southeastward. And if you look carefully, you can see the clouds are actually blowing northeast to southwest. So there's a little bit of northeasterly shear off the southeast coast of the United States, but through the Bahamas, at least, Joe, I am not seeing any kind of. I know they've been talking about southwest shear. The models have been generating a belt of strong southwest winds developing in this area and off the Florida coast. But as one of the Hurricane Center's forecasters pointed out yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that that southwest, those strong southwest winds that are being shown might be getting generated by the storm itself in terms of how the model is reflecting it, and that in reality those southwest winds are not going to be all that strong, so that there might be far less shear than you think. So I think it is worth noting that conditions might be a bit more favorable for strengthening than is being given credit for, given what the satellite looks like at the moment.
Well, the technical discussion that came out at 5 o'clock, does indeed point out that there is currently a significant concentration of convection near the mid-level center that is located along the northern coast of the island. And recent surface observations are suggesting that indeed a new center may be forming near the area of that mid-level rotation that's seen on the satellite imagery. And that'll be something to watch over the course of the upcoming next few hours.
Might be, because if there is a new center there, they're gonna have to reinitialize everything. Suddenly, you're going to have something that's much further north or northwest, and that could change the outcome of some of the forecast down the road.
Right, and the early data from the reconnaissance aircraft supporting the idea that the intensity of the storm is somewhere in the vicinity of about 50 knots. There hasn't been really any significant, as they call it, degradation of the overall organization, since it has some coverage over Hispaniola and those tall mountains So they'll keep the intensity at 50 knots. And as I said, if that convection, that area of convection, continues to bubble up and the storm the center of the storm stays to the north of the island, then we could see some very rapid intensification once it becomes fully out over the warm waters, and we may see this become a hurricane quicker than what some of the predictions and forecasts are suggesting right now.
Well, there was already the last recon that I looked at. There were and have been since last night. They're at flight level anyway, northeast of the Dominican Republic coastline, where there were some 60 and 65 knot winds at flight level anyway. So I agree with you. I think this is going to rev up a little faster, and it might have a few surprises along the way as it moves on up to the northwest. I just checked while you were on. I just flipped over to check tropical tidbits on the aircraft recon, and there have been no new reconnaissance aircrafts there in the last 6 hours, mainly because the center is over land. But once they get an idea, once they know what the center is going to be offshore, I'm sure there's going to be another reconnaissance aircraft flight, maybe later this evening. So perhaps for the next, if not the 11 a.m. advisory, certainly for some update during the early morning hours. But again, it's looking rather impressive to me at the moment in terms of the structure, and we're going to see how it goes. Now, here's a look at the model track guidance. And whenever you folks at home see this running around someplace on social media, look at the upper left. And there's a disclaimer up there, which is very important. Do not use this map to make decisions. Seek official information. And we can't emphasize enough. And that goes for Joe, our opinions as well. Because that's what they are, and you really want to make sure that you get your information from your local weather service forecast office, the National Hurricane Center, and your local government officials regarding what you should or shouldn't be doing when dealing with tropical storms or hurricanes. So, Joe, the model track guidance is very tightly clustered. All the tracks are offshore except for one that takes it into the eastern Gulf of Mexico along the west coast of Florida, and then it dissipates it. So we'll call that the odd man out. But the rest of them are all very, very tightly clustered through the Bahamas, passing just east of southern Florida and staying offshore by 60 or so miles. And then a few of them, more than a few of them, in fact, I think all of them take this inland into North Carolina, either over the Outer Banks or in eastern North Carolina, and then passing just off the Delaware coast, somewhere east of New Jersey, south of Long Island, to New England. And these hurricane tracking models since yesterday have been very slowly shifting further west, that's been the general trend. We'll see
Right,
if that continues.
And as you just mentioned a few moments ago, if indeed they decide to reposition the center, or if the center is actually positioned in a different spot than what we're looking at right now, then that could change the all of these tracks, the spaghetti plot, so to speak. But again, it is basically taking what I guess you could say is the classic track relative to the Atlantic seaboard. Nothing like what we had the other day, where it gets up to about North Carolina, and then all of a sudden it makes a right-hand turn, and then makes another turn up towards
right.
That was
that was the parallel. That was the regular GFS versus the perpendicular GFS.
Yeah,
where it runs it out to the east and then shoots it up straight north. No, that's not going to happen. This is a nice smooth turn. And again, if you visualize the shape, folks, if you visualize the shape of this curve, your upper high is out here, and I'll make it red so we can see it a bit better. So here's your upper high. So this is basically around the periphery of the upper high. And here, you can't really see it on this side, but we've seen it on the maps, your deep trough that extends from the Great Lakes down to just about to the Gulf Coast. And it's going to be riding up along that. The strength of both of those two features are really going to determine the handful of miles that make all the difference in the world as far as the forecast is concerned.
it will. And that trough in the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes area, that kind of pushes a bit further to the east. On the other hand, if the high, that subtropical high, decides to flex its muscles and kind of expands a little bit, that could push it back to the west. So we'll have to just see how things go over the next 3, 4, 5 days. You're basing this forecast on current the current atmospheric conditions, and things change over a course
Well,
of several
and in
days.
the short term, Joe, that's why that redeveloping center to further north is very important to the outcome. I don't
Right.
know specifically what that would do to these forecasts. I'll leave that to the models to figure that out. But I don't think you can say that if we suddenly move it up further north, that necessarily means everything will be further east, or nor does it necessarily mean everything will be further west. I think the other part of this recipe that we have to include is, well, how, what happens to the strength? Does the redevelopment further north enhance the possibility that this will become a hurricane at some point, and that in and of itself is going to impact the direction, because the stronger a storm is, the more vertical it is. It tends to respond to winds at the higher levels of the atmosphere in terms of the steering. So that usually means that they tend to turn northward sooner, and but not always. There's always the rule to every exception. There is a rule, and more often than not, when you rely on the rule, it's the exception that gets you.
And it's moving fairly rapid, Joe. I mean, that forward motion for a tropical system, especially what we have on the screen now from the Virginia Capes in 120 hours,
Right. This is
all the
the
way
I
up,
just put
all the
up
way
the
up.
GFS ensembles here.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, from what we see here, it's at the Virginia Capes at 120 hours, and then 24 hours later, it's already in the Gulf of Maine. That's pretty darn fast.
Yeah, it is quick, and the European is almost a day slower. So I don't know. Considering where it is now, and today is Thursday. It's Thursday evening. Uh, I don't. Tuesday seems a long time for it to get to, because the European Tuesday morning has it just right into right along the North Carolina coast. I mean, that seems like a long time. Maybe it's just too slow, and it still not hasn't really slowed down. That's the other thing. It is going to probably slow down a bit as it moves through the Bahamas, which makes for more complications as far as the forecast is concerned. The GFS ensembles today, by the way, from yesterday, actually are further left. They are closer to the coast. If you notice, Joe, there's a number of members of the ensemble that take it right over Delaware, southern New Jersey, western Long Island into Connecticut. So the GFS has been kind of wavering since yesterday. It seems like it's pushed a little bit further to the left. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's right, but that I'm just reflecting what it said, what it's done. And here is, by the way, the Hurricane Center's forecast. And I'm going to lay the track, and we'll put the what do you like? The earliest reasonable arrival of winds, or the most likely time of arrival?
Um, I would say most likely. You
Okay.
know,
That, that
why scare people? Suggesting that
why
something will
scare people
happen.
by being reasonable? I don't know why they call. Why do they, I'm wondering why the most reasonable arrival time or the most likely arrival time. I don't know why we need to know reasonable arrival time unless they figure, let's give people a little window to work with if they're going to wind up looking at both maps. Actually, if we overlaid the two of them together, it won't let me overlay the two of them together. So
That's because
I'm just gonna.
that's because people they realize there are people like you who are troublemakers.
Well, for example, the earliest reasonable arrival time in South Florida is between 8 p.m. Friday and 8 a.m. Saturday. The most likely time of arrival is between 8 a.m. Saturday and 8 p.m. Saturday. So we'll stay with the most likely time of arrival. If we have to move the time up, we'll move the time up. But you have the track here. By the way, tropical storm watches are now up for South Florida. We'll get to that also in a moment. And we are seeing the track of the Hurricane Center's forecast right through the Bahamas. looks like the islands are going to get rocked, and I haven't really seen very much from what's happened since Dorian, because I'm sure that they have not completely rebuilt from the damage with Dorian. Not that this is in any way comparison, but uh, the last thing you need is another tropical storm after you've had a Category 5 hurricane. And here we go with the turn up the coast, and you see the gales on this 8 a.m. Monday. Reaching into South Carolina by 8 p.m. Monday, gales up to North Carolina. So it would be sometime Monday night with its track east of Atlantic City, southeast of Montauk, the Hurricane Center's official forecast. So it'll be sometime Monday evening into Tuesday morning in terms of the timing, unless the European is right, in which case it'll be more like Tuesday during the daytime.
Yeah, I'll have to do a consensus of the European and the two GFS models and see how that all pans out. But it's Monday, Tuesday. That's going to be the time frame for us up here, I think, to be concerned. But again, as I'm saying, it's one thing if we're north and west of the center. You don't want that center to go over us or even have it just inland because that's where all the real nasty stuff, the real nasty weather will be. But I'm the lesser of all the evils right now is the track that the Hurricane Center is showing that keeps that thing just off to our south and east. In fact, I think maybe later tonight I'll look at all of the tracks that are very similar to this track, and then I'll go into some of the old newspapers. I have access to, the Times and other papers that report on the aftermath of such storms and see just how serious or how not so bad
Right.
it turned out to be.
Tropical storm watches are up for the east coast of Florida from Ocean Reef northward to Sebastian Inlet. So basically, from the beginning of the Keys and northward to about halfway up the coast, 19 and a half north, 70.6 west, which is 155 miles west northwest of Punta Cana on the Dominican Republic, 250 miles southeast of the southeasternmost Bahamas, moving northwest at 310 degrees at 18 knots. So it's moving a little slower than what it was yesterday and the day before. And they're carrying a pressure, Joe, of 999 millibars, 29.50 inches. So just for those of you who may be concerned, or possibly, because we do get folks from the islands that watch during these tropical systems, the Dominican Republic, the entire southern and northern coastline under a tropical storm warning, the north coast of Haiti, from Les Moles St. Nicolas eastward to the northern border with the Dominican Republic. If I read it as written, it'd be Les Moles St. Nicolas. Okay, so I'm trying to, accent it a little bit. I'd like to pronounce these things correctly.
Can you do me a favor
Yeah.
with the map? Can you put on the track line that you can
Oh, you mean this one here?
Connecting all of the positions that you can show a line or a curved line.
That's the black line in the middle. Let me take the wind off, and you can see it better. Do you see it with the cone? It'll be up there. You're on the delay. It'll be up there in a moment.
Oh, okay.
But the islands are so we have the Turks and Caicos, the southeastern Bahamas, including Acklins, Crooked Island, Long Cay, the Iguanas, Managua, Mayaguana, and the Ragged Islands. Central Bahamas, including Cat Island, the Exumas, Long Island. That's Long Island in the Central Bahamas and not Long Island in the People's Republic of the State of New York, just to be clear. Okay. Rum Cay, that's an interesting name, and San Salvador. Northwestern Bahamas, including Andros Island, New Providence, Eleuthera, Abacos, Berry Islands, Grand Bahama Island, and Bimini.
Oh, I've heard of Bimini.
Yeah. Isn't that part of a song or something?
Yeah.
Right. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much to Shraggy Stern for hitting super chats.
Thank you, Shraggy. Shaggy is also a regular on Patreon, on my weather platform on Patreon. Okay, slightly shameless self promotion, I know, but what can we do? All right,
Not to be
let's.
confused, not to be confused with Shaggy from Scooby Doo,
That's
right?
correct.
Right.
Okay, so moving right along, let's go to the models, and let's take a look. We'll start with we'll go with the GFS because we have a brand new GFS to look at. And again, my main emphasis is going to be on this upper air because that really is the bottom line. And we do have, let me clean it up. We do have a shortwave coming through out of southeastern Canada that's swinging across the northeast at the moment. But we do also have this lagging energy back through Kansas and Missouri. On the lower right, you just can begin to see the nose of our tropical storm. Now, if this were to stay exactly like this would be a no-brainer because this would move northwestward until it couldn't go northwestward anymore, and it starts hitting these westerly winds, west to east winds across the lower Gulf states and off the Carolinas, and it would shoot right out to the northeast, and there would be no issue. Okay, but nothing in the atmosphere is ever static, and of course, the short wave that moves through New England kind of moves out. The plains shortwave amplifies here and amplifies in a fairly strong way. And at the same time, by the way, there's another shortwave that's dropping down from Canada across Lake Winnipeg and into the Western Lakes. And this is by Saturday afternoon. So now it's a little, you look at the upper air, and let's apply, Joe, we'll apply the same logic we just did. If what we have here were to stay the same, then this would probably straddle the coastline into the Carolinas and then turn out and move away to the northeast. So on we go, and you notice that shortwave trough in the Ohio Valley down to the middle Mississippi Valley down to the Gulf Coast doesn't swing eastward. It just sits there and it waits for that upper trough to the north to kind of pick it up and phase with it. And that's what you have here by the time we get to Monday. And of course, now we're at the point that your tropical system on the GFS is right near Wilmington, North Carolina, with the south-southwest flow along the eastern seaboard. It would move north-northeast, and there you go. It gets kicked away to the northeast, and then the whole trough goes away. So this is how the GFS sees the world. I didn't look at the Canadian today. Did you look at the Canadian?
Yeah, and the Canadian kind of moves the storm. It's the one of the few models that actually takes it up. It seems the west coast of Florida, and then kind of just like it almost loses it somewhere in the southeastern United States. So
Well, it has a
uh,
very deep trough on the Canadian. I think it might even be actually deeper than the European was. So I'm just bringing up the precip map. Yeah, it brings it in, Joe. I'm seeing what you're saying here. It actually brings it. It's kind of the old European solution from a couple of days ago. It keeps the system relatively weak, moves it very close to to Cuba along the north coast, and then brings it in over the Keys and into Southwest Florida, and then it just kind of falls apart. In fact, the moisture eventually gets dragged up the East Coast with the frontal boundary, but the storm just basically falls apart on the Canadian. That seems to be the least likely outcome.
I
Uh,
just figured it was an outlier and didn't really put too much stock in it. I basically just looked at the GFS, the parallel GFS, and the European to help guide in terms of what we may or may not see over the next 4, 5, 6 days. They're right now they seem to be our best bet in the mid and long
well,
range.
here's the icon. And the icon, by the way, if you look on the lower right corner, Joe, on the icon and the European both, and the GFS also did this, they spin up something east
Right.
of the Bahamas on the tail of this. But the icon, which this is Monday night near Wilmington, North Carolina, it basically has it's fairly close to what the European has. It's just about 12 hours faster. Shoots it up eastern North Carolina, right over the Delmarva Peninsula, right along the New Jersey coast to western Long Island, New York City, and into central Connecticut and on up into New England. So the icon and the European are very close. I will say too, noticing even though the NAM does not go out far enough, but I did notice that the NAM at the last day on the NAM is Monday morning, 2 a.m. Uh, the NAM upper air matched up fairly well with the Europeans upper air, at least through the 84-hour time frame. I'm just going to bring it up really quick here.
Yeah, I mentioned the last couple of days that the one system that reminded me most of what we're looking at for the early part of next week was Bell from 1976. And incidentally, somebody on my Facebook page pointed out that if this hits, let's say, if in our area Monday night, early Tuesday morning, that's exactly what Bell did. It did hit on
Right.
a Monday night, early Tuesday.
The only thing is, I think a couple of course, they're never exactly the same. One of the differences I would point to is the depth of this trough. I think this trough is a lot deeper than the one with Bell. Bell had the same kind of trough, but the same idea. But I think this is a deeper flow with a faster flow. The other thing is, Bell formed over the Bahamas and actually was stationary there for about a day and a half until it started to move. Whereas this one is already a tropical storm and could possibly be a hurricane when it gets to the Bahamas. We'll just have to wait and see. So, uh, look, I think in summary, I think we could just pretty much sum it up. We're getting a little bit more clarity. As we said at the beginning, I believe that the risks to the East Coast are growing. Uh, Whether they are growing to an extent that it means that something is imminent, no, we're not there yet at all, and we won't be there tomorrow. I don't think we might be getting closer on Saturday to put some definitiveness to it, but I would think by Sunday we should have this hammered down. Would you not agree?
I would hope. Yeah,
So we could always
because
hope.
because the people out there are saying, well, you guys have all this computer information. Why can't you tell me now?
Well, they have all that computer information to to their access too. So why don't they tell us? They always seem to tell us. They're always telling us they're better than we are,
Yeah.
right? Not our audience per se. I'm just saying in general. When you run into that snarky person at the supermarket checkout line, that's one good thing about social distancing now. That doesn't happen anymore. People are too busy focusing on being 6 feet apart.
Right.
By the way, uh, you mentioned this the other night, and this was an interesting development with respect to everything going on with. I'm coming full screen, by the way, so if you can just kind of center yourself on the camera.
Oh,
Otherwise,
I'm
it's just
sorry.
your eyes. Oh, that's all right. I don't
I'm
want you.
sorry. I'm just like
You're
I'm lounging
relaxing.
here.
Yeah.
I get a
See,
bit of view of the
I'm
nest.
busy. I'm busy moving maps around all over creation, so uh, you get to lounge. But in all seriousness, then I want to come back to do some current weather because we've got some showers and storms scattered around, and we've got a nice looking area of rain headed here for the overnight. Somebody's going to get woken up by thunderstorms, I think, tomorrow morning at around 2 or 3 a.m. I don't know if, exactly whom, but somebody is. But in all seriousness, Florida apparently has now, and we were trying to figure out the consequences of everything that's going on. One of the things that's apparently happened is the suspension of testing in Florida because of the tropical storm. So
Right.
that was something that never really occurred to me that they would do, but apparently they have. So now we'll have to see if it comes down to, well, if there is a hurricane and there's a, becomes a situation where, and I don't know that it will be, but if it were, and then they have to evacuate, well, what are they going to do? I don't know what they did in Texas in terms of trying to keep the social distancing, particularly because Texas and Florida right now have a lot of COVID cases, so it makes it very difficult.
And the other thing, Joe, which I'm surprised we haven't brought up, is the fact for coastal interests that let's say this does, rev up along the eastern seaboard Monday, Tuesday of next week. Well, guess what? Monday night's a full moon,
Well, that's
and
not
the
well, that's not good.
and the astronomical tides will be a little bit higher
Well, the
because
highest tides are until probably Wednesday, correct?
correct, that usually happens about a day or two after, but still close enough. I mean, you got a full moon. Those tides are going to be a bit higher than normal anyway. And now we've got to worry about this thing churning up the water, possibly leading to coastal flooding and possibly even leading to beach erosion.
Well, timing's not good with the full moon. That's for darn sure.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to bring up the U.S. satellite here. So let's do that. And by the way, Joe is always monitoring the chat board. So if you have any questions or comments, by all means, share them with us. And if you're new to the channel, if you have a Gmail account, you can just subscribe with your Gmail address, and you can participate in the chat. So here's our full U.S. satellite. Look at the western end of that, Joe. That is a nice rotation going on back in the plains. That's the upper trough that's dropping down into the lower Mississippi Valley. So that process is underway, of course, and you've got this east-west frontal boundary now that's brought in cloud cover. I had clouds rolled in here fairly early today. I didn't get very warm. Temperatures got to maybe about the low 80s, and then they just sort of stopped there out by me, which, I'm in central Long Island, north central Long Island. On the lower right, you should be able to see our tropical storm as it moves on the scene. I've been pronouncing it Isaias, using the Portuguese pronunciation, and Joe has been pronouncing it.
I'm not going to say. I think I
Mrs. Rayo. Is he going to pronounce it right, Mrs. Rayo?
Pizzeria.
Pizzerias. Or pizzeria, like pizzeria?
No, please don't.
Pizzeria.
Are you sure
there's no the S at the end. So the S is silent.
Are you sure this is Portuguese, by the way?
When I looked it up on Google, it said it was Portuguese.
Okay.
And it was on Google, so it has to be correct. If it's on the internet, it has to be true, right?
Well, I'm looking around on the internet for how they will pronounce. The voice will pronounce the name for you or pronounce the word for you.
Well, that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. And
it came up to the way you're pronouncing it.
Yeah. Isaias.
All right. Well.
And it said it was Portuguese.
According to Mrs. Rayo, that is not the correct pronunciation.
All right. Well, I'm just telling you what Google told me. Okay.
I once told my wife, I said, we ought to go on and have her own YouTube channel, and she's so able to do everything. I don't know. I don't think there's anything my wife can't do.
No, I told you this from the onset that she should do this.
And the name of the show should be "Those Are the Rules."
Right. Well, that's always the case.
I would love to see her.
Every episode starts off with you coming in and saying, and the first two words out of your mouth are, "I'm sorry."
I'd like to see her go one-on-one with Martha Stewart.
Oh, I would totally back your Mrs. Rayo. I would totally support her.
That. Meanwhile, Paul Roman,
Mrs. Rayo would not give me a recipe where she would tell me to use so many eggs, but then tell me that the eggs have to be laid by her chickens rather than the ones you get at the store, which are bigger, and ruins whatever recipe you're making.
Hey, look, my birthday's coming up in a few days, and she said, "What kind of cake do you want me to make?" And I thought for a moment about that cake that she made for you.
Oh my God!
I think it was about this time last year.
That was, and I am not a cake fan at all. But that cake, that was amazing. That was the butter pecan cake. Yeah, that was insane.
She had to get an environmental impact statement.
No,
on that cake.
One slice of that, a small slice of that cake had 800 calories in it. It was the most decadent piece of dessert that I think I have ever had. And I'm not a big dessert fan.
Now on the chat board right now, again, thank you very much, Paul Roman, for hitting super chats. Cyan Hernandez.
Okay.
Cyan Hernandez says Isaiah or Isaiah.
Isaiah.
That's the way he's and Chuck Cardillo says ECS.
We're gonna, this is really,
and the news media, media is staying clear they're referring to it as the tropical system.
Well, what have we
Tropical
been what have we
cyclone.
been doing for the
But
last 45 minutes? Not except at the beginning and now. Neither of us we've been referring to it as the tropical storm, the
right,
hurricane. We've not
right.
we haven't even
Staying away from
we've been staying
tropical
away
system
from it.
9. Stop tropical system 9 or whatever. You know,
Look, and to be fair, and I just want to say this because everybody's touchy these days. So it's not that we're making fun, okay? And particularly me with my last name, which has been butchered all over creation, and I've had told people have had the audacity to tell me that I pronounce it wrong, putting H's and E's and P's in it, and all sorts of ridiculous pronunciations and spellings. So I I understand. That's why I make a really strong effort to try to get the pronunciation correct. But this one's tough. This one's a real challenge. So anyhow,
even Nora O'Donnell tonight on the CBS Evening News, she started
she's
off talking about the storm threat to Florida. It's revving up. It could be a hurricane. Then she said the
the
pronounced
name.
the name, and then she bookmarked that or footnoted it with. He said, "Yes, I know it is a difficult name to say." So even these multi-million-dollar anchor people are having trouble.
I just wonder whether after this is all over that they may go back and say, you know what, maybe we have to be a little careful with some of these names and not make them too hard to pronounce. I don't
Yeah.
know. Let's look at the radar, Joe. Tonight we got a busy radar, particularly. Now, we had that marginal risk of severe weather, and once again, I mean, there were a couple of scattered thunderstorms, and there actually still are on the radar in parts of New York State and New England. But this was never going to be anything more than widely scattered activity anyway. But with the front that's stalling out overhead, we've got this wave developing, and it's a fairly impressive area of rain. Southern Pennsylvania, north into Virginia, West Virginia. Johnny Quest said he got pounded with several inches of rain and flooding up in the northwestern mountains of Virginia where he habitats. And that rain area, that shield goes back to Ohio and Indiana. Uh, I think that and there are a few embedded heavier storms in this. I think that this could be one of those situations. When I looked at the HRRR during the overnight, it does seem to bring through a couple of cells here, a couple of strong cells. And actually, looking at the HRRR, it does look even a little bit underdone. But there are some strong cells that come in the early morning hours into central and South Jersey, particularly along the New Jersey coast, and maybe clipping parts of Long Island. And I don't know, Joe. I think tomorrow we've got rain eastern PA to the coast up until about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, then or 11 o'clock in the morning. Uh, I'm not sure how much sun we're going to get tomorrow afternoon. We may have to, if we're sitting in clouds tomorrow, it might keep temperatures from getting much out of the 70s where it stays cloudy. If it breaks out into some sun, somebody's going to get into the 80s, but at least we're not going to go to 90 tomorrow.
No, oh, no question about that. In fact, believe it or not, Joe, in the Hudson Valley, I kept temperatures tomorrow in the 70s to near 80. I mean, a real come down in terms of what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 days. I wouldn't even be surprised. Now, you and I, we were discussing, would New York City get to 90 and extend their heat wave to 5 days? Sure enough, they got to 92 today. But tomorrow, if those clouds hold through much of the day tomorrow, and it has happened in history. We've had cases where the cloud cover was so thick that it held the temperature down. They'll be surprised even in New York City if they don't get out of the 70s
Oh no,
tomorrow.
I agree. Well, this happened back not what was it Friday before last when we had it was cloudy all day. Now, as far as the weekend is concerned, before we even get there, the showers and storms tomorrow are going to probably be along that frontal boundary across Virginia into North Carolina, more into Virginia than North Carolina, until the frontal boundary sinks southward. And of course, you see the tropical system down in the Bahamas on the NAM Friday night, and that frontal boundary just kind of sits there. Saturday, Joe, we're going to start the process of turning the air very tropical along the East Coast. And there's going to be a warm front that's going to move northward probably Saturday night into early Sunday morning. And you can see that low that goes up toward the St. Lawrence Valley by early Monday morning. This is going to set up the alleyway along the East Coast at the surface, but I think it's also going to bring in those tropical dew points again later Sunday and for Sunday night and Monday. You need that to happen in order for in order for the tropical system to respond. It kind of that's what the alleyway is doing. You're getting tropical air that's coming around the ridge off the East Coast and the deep trough to the west that's accelerating it along. It's going to feel like Florida up here Sunday and Monday, I think.
No question about that. And of course, pre-tropical cyclone visitation, you always get that. You always get that sudden increase in humidity to make it feel like it's in the tropics. It always seems to happen, Joe, and it looks like it's going to happen here come, as you said, Sunday. And there's also the possibility, although they still have not put anything specifically on the maps, the extended maps. There's the possibility that on Sunday we might be looking at strong to severe weather here in the Northeast and here in the tri-state area.
All right, so let's do a little Briller Jeopardy. See if we can get out on time tonight at 8:00. Do you have your questions up yet, or because I don't have them up yet?
I don't have any questions. I don't think he sent me any.
Scott minus, I think he sent me some last night, so I will bring them up on my. I gotta find them first. There we go. And I thought he did. Perhaps he did not.
He of course is going to be out for the next.
Right, he's doing COVID delivery tonight. So right. I guess he didn't send me the questions. We did the 0 or 100, which will occur first. That was last night. Okay, so I guess I was mistaken. So we'll have to just wait till he gets on board again.
Yes.
But I thought he did send them to me last night, but I guess I'm wrong. And you don't have anything for me either.
Well, I don't have anything for you, but I do have a couple of more super chats here. One from I did Paul Roman, and one from Brandon Doherty. Happy birthday! Save me a piece of cake. Thank you, Brandon. And Ryan Ford, who asked the question: do you guys think that this storm could play out like a winter storm, where it makes more of a westward shift when we get closer in time?
If snow were involved, the answer to that question would be yes.
Well, there was a rule that came. Somebody who used to work at the National Meteorological Center, now it's the Weather Prediction Center, a gentleman by the name of Rosenblum, and it came out to be Rosenblum's rule, where winter storm systems, when they intensify, they tend to curve or turn more to the left or more to the west. I don't know if you can play that out though with a tropical or a warm core system.
Yeah, it's a little dicier because the stronger the storm, usually as it gains latitude, it's going to want to go more to the right because it's responding to the flow at higher levels of the atmosphere, which tends to be more westerly than at the lower levels. So I don't think it would work that way. I think it would work the opposite way.
I think it'd be.
It would be we'll call it the reverse Rosenblum rule.
Reverse Rosenblum.
Reverse Rosenblum.
Linda Santos says, by the way, Joe Chiappi, your voice is louder and softer because either you're moving in and out from your mic or for some other issue.
Yeah, no, that's it.
This has been a problem for some time. Just so you know, Joe Rayo's voice is fine.
I know, but just so you know too, while Joe is just sitting there with his fine voice, I am constantly moving around and moving maps up and pulling maps down and going to screens on a separate screen, and my microphone is right here, and I try to keep it. I don't move it. I don't touch it. I also tend to get excited sometimes, and when I get excited, I talk a bit louder. Joe is a much calmer sort of creature, so he just kind of, has a more relaxed tone, a more soothing tone.
Soothing tone.
Soothing.
Like that. And Joe, I know I'm looking out here toward the window, toward the. I have sliding glass doors looking out to the back patio.
And you've determined that you could use a little Windex.
No, not that, but it's 5 minutes to 8, and I could have sworn that a month ago it was so much brighter and nicer out there, and now, obviously, we're seeing the sun setting a lot sooner than we did just a few weeks ago. So the days are slowly but surely getting shorter.
I
and
know.
we
And
and we
Linda,
can.
thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I'm not trying to bust your chops or anything, but seriously, I'm constantly moving around, and I get excited when I talk. So when I get excited, I tend to talk louder, and then I got to monitor my levels at the same time. And if I'm doing that, I can't, I can't pull the map up, or you know what I'm saying. So
Yes.
it's I'll try to maintain a more equal level.
Christianapedia says, Linda Santos, it only happens for me on the desktop, not on the phone. No other YouTuber does this, and I watch 4 religiously.
So it's all about me. It's all about me. I don't know.
Now,
What can I tell you? See,
I suppose,
when you're the producer, the director, the writer, and everything else, and I'm the technical director. I'm the audio guy. What else? How many other jobs do I have?
I don't
And when
know.
you and I first started in television, there was one person for each of those things. And nowadays there's basically like one person in the control room and maybe two people in the control room, and that's just about it. So
I
uh,
mean, like back then, they actually had a floor manager, and when I first got started in this in television, I mean, they actually used to hold up cards, 31, 2, and then they used hand signals. But they had a floor manager. They had 3 camera people. This was before the automated cameras came into vogue, right?
right,
It's a whole now you can do a whole show with just like nobody in the room.
pretty much. As long as you don't have to do a whole show with nobody in the audience, that's a problem.
Actually, where we used to work, we were not our stations were not unionized, and so they could do anything they want. They could say, "All
Right.
right, we'll put the automated stuff in and have things moved around." And thank you very much. We appreciate all you did for being behind the camera or being the floor mat, but you're gone now. Forget about it. But now,
Well, I worked in a union shop, and they did the same thing there. So it took them a little bit longer, but also there the same job reductions and people reductions.
well, I'm talking about like like the not the Letterman show, but I mean Colbert, for example, or the Tonight Show. You'll still see people holding, you know, dummy cards, so to speak, and doing stuff that could actually be done, with teleprompters or automation or whatever like that. But I guess the union is a little stronger in some circles.
Yeah. Yep. All
Izzy
right.
D, thank you. Thank you for Izzy
Thanks,
D.
Izzy. Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you on board. And thanks. So we got a nice crowd tonight, which is always good. We like nice crowds on the show. The the podcast of this show will be ready in about an hour. So if you want to hear it on a replay, but you don't want to necessarily watch it, you can go to Apple Podcasts because we're there on Apple now, and also Google Podcasts, along with Spotify, and there's a podcast site called Overcast that we're on as well, and a bunch of others. So
And
make
Izzy
sure if
wants
you missed the show on video, you can always just listen to it on your phone.
Izzy also Izzy D says insists that one of us reads this off the chat board. You guys have the expert of weather job. Hope you guys do this forever, longer than I live, even though I'm younger.
Somehow, yeah, I think Risa, you're going to be around after Joe and I are gone. Okay, just so
Well,
just
somebody needs to take over after we're
well, that
gone,
that
Joe.
that's quite true. Manual 349 asks a question that I've heard asked by a number of people, and it should be addressed. When was the last time we had a cool July?
Well, we had what I call the Garden of Eden summer. I think I think now that it was either in 2013 or 2016, one of those 2 years. It was amazing. The whole summer was wonderful. I mean, we
Hmm.
actually had a few below normal days, blue sky, low humidity, temps in the 70s. And I said, this is like being in the Garden of Eden. This is not like
I
what
know,
we're
and we've been
this
we've been punished ever since.
ever since. Yeah, yeah.
All right, folks. So look, tune in tomorrow as we will go over what the latest developments are with the tropical storm or the hurricane or whatever it happens to be.
Oh, you mean we're
Because
not taking a day off tomorrow? I guess not.
yeah, let's
Not with
not.
not
Uh,
with a tropical system. I would suspect we may also be doing something on Saturday,
yeah,
maybe.
but if we do, yeah, you probably will. If we need to, we could go earlier in the day. We don't have to go at 7 in the evening. You and I can discuss that. We've got our Sunday morning show, of course, and yeah, so there'll be a little bit of added coverage this weekend. No days off for us.
Hey, how about on Monday night as the storm is almost upon us? We come on at 7 o'clock. We do a marathon till like 4 the next morning. Sorry,
I think I am limited to how long a live stream can actually go. I think it's 4 hours. I
oh
think it is. But let me check. I'll check on that. You can see I'm not exactly enthused by the suggestion.
no,
Um, I'm not jumping up and down for joy. No, you're not seeing me do that.
I ought to
So
get like I ought to try to get like 10-10 wins. We'll get like teletype um, noise in the background. And like every time there's an update on the hurricane, he said, "Well, a bulletin just handed to
this
me."
just in. And you have to get the kind of paper that looks like it's 20 years old and has been peed on.
Right,
The old
right,
Associated Press paper with the old teletypes.
exactly.
Oh God! All right, everybody have a great night, and be sure you tune in tomorrow. And of course, if you are on my other weather platforms, there's stuff that's going to be going up shortly, and look for the podcast. All
And you
right.
didn't say one thing about the fact that I had a haircut today.
Oh, you did. Well, you did get them all cut.
I did.
Well, Timothy Veltman wants to shave your head, so.
I'll tell you what. If the price is right, I would do it.
All right, Joe. Good night. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.